That Prepper pre-party show. This is your host Sarge, and it's good to see everybody again. We've got a stream going on both Instagram and YouTube. Trying something a little bit different today with the vertical stream because, as those of you guys who watched with me last week, you know we had some glitchy stuff going on with StreamYard. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a break from StreamYard for a couple weeks, give them a chance to work out whatever's going on over there, and we'll try some different things here until we can get back on there. So tonight's topic is prepping for the next government shutdown. If you've been watching the news today, you already know, yes, they did pass the funding bill. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about what if they hadn't, because this is not going to be the last time that we deal with this kind of, you know, these little political games, these partisan political games that our legislators play. So we're going to talk about that. As always, I welcome you to jump into the chat on YouTube, where we usually have a nice little community going. We only have a couple rules, and the first of which is number one: be kind. You can disagree, you can critique me, but be kind to each other in the chat. Be kind to the moderators. No racism, no sexism. If you want to disagree, make a point, right? Like explain why you think I'm wrong and why you think you're right. I welcome feedback. I change my mind on things. I've over the course of my adulthood, I've changed a lot of my opinions on a lot of political things. So as long as you can make your point and articulate it, you're more than welcome. What we don't like is when people say that's stupid or you're an idiot or whatever, and you can't tell me why I'm wrong and you're right. There's no point to that. You're not adding anything to the conversation. So those are the only rules here. Other than that, let's have a good time. Appreciate everybody who joins me on Friday nights and gives me a little bit of your time. I know you could be doing anything else, spending time with your family. So I try to keep these brief, and I try to get offline for some of the bigger channels that usually go live after me on Friday nights. Just to be respectful of that. We always try not to stream over our friends, but sometimes we can't help it. It does happen from time to time. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you, Instagram. Anybody who's watching over there, if you want to get in on the chat, we are over on YouTube. Unfortunately, I cannot follow both when it comes to the chat, and Instagram doesn't really have a good setup for following live stream chat anyways. So we'd love to have you participate. Head on over to YouTube. That's this camera. This is Instagram. So if you guys see me moving back and forth, that's what's going on. And straight ahead of me, of course, is my notes. So I can follow, and chat. So I can follow what you all are saying in chat. All right. Of course, we do have a little poll going on at the top. It's just more of a joke poll this week. And as always, I will end with a positive message for you. So please stay till the very end. If you get anything of value out of tonight's message, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, we'd love to have you subscribe. We do all kinds of videos here about preparedness, everything from financial preparedness to food self-sufficiency to how to train your brain to be prepared for emergencies, okay? Because I'm also a licensed therapist by trade, all right? Let me say hi to a few people here in chat. Scott Hummer, thank you. This is like the third or fourth week in a row you've been the first one in chat, brother. I really appreciate you, and thank you for giving me a little bit of your Friday night to us. Let's see who else I got. Virginia Bushcraft, how are you doing tonight? It's good to see you. Make sure you guys are checking out Virginia Bushcrafter's channel too. He puts out awesome content. He is out there in the woods showing you how to make shelters, do all kinds of cool stuff. He's got a great video this week about sharpening your axe and hatchet. Make sure you check that one out. It is a step-by-step tutorial. Really good stuff, especially if you're new to sharpening. You really need to go check that, bookmark it, save it for later, so that if you have to come back to it, you've got it. Actually, you know, it's a good idea if you find a really good prepping video to create your own prepping playlist, so that if you find a video like on creating shelters or something else, or how to preserve blueberries or whatever, and you think, you know what, I might use that again, create your own little playlist, you know, and make it public so that other people can see it too. That's a great thing to do for the community as well. So just a thought. Lazarus Long, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. Hope you're having a good night as well. Sumi, how you doing tonight? Happy Friday. It's always good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. And Angie Hart, how are you doing tonight, my shopping buddy? I hope you are having a great night. Hope you're having I hope you all have a great weekend. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get into the main topic here. I don't want to take up too much of your Friday night. So leading up to the week, this week, there was a couple topics I was debating about what I wanted to talk about. And then as we got closer to Friday, I said, you know, I need to talk about this funding bill, because it looked like, at least at that time, they weren't going to get it passed, that the Democrats in the Senate were going to block the bill. That's what it looked like. They did end up passing that tonight, actually not too long ago. The funding bill passed. This is a stopgap funding bill, which means that this is only running, I think, until September. So this is just to kind of get us through to the fall. But what we did do is by passing that, we averted a government shutdown. So shout out to Chuck Schumer, who decided to play bipartisan politics for once and get this bill signed, because it looked like he was going to be one of the obstacles. And let's talk about that for a minute. Personally, as somebody who's more of an independent, somebody who's more of a moderate, yes, I do think the GOP should have included the Democrats in the development of this funding bill. I would love to see a day where we get to a place in the United States where we can have bipartisan conversations again, cross party lines, and get things done for the benefit of all Americans. We haven't been there for a while. This is not a new thing, right? Like whatever party's in charge likes to run the deck. And this is not new. This has been going on, I'm going to say at least since the 90s. Okay, at least since the 90s. The end of the 90s is what I'm thinking. Okay, so this has been going on for a while. And the reality of the situation is because the GOP has control over the president, the White House, Senate, and House, realistically, they don't have to. They have enough power and votes that they don't have to include the Democrats in the development of their funding bill. And they can pass just about anything they want it to pass right now. So this is going to be a very interesting legislative session. That being said, I still think it would have been a good thing for all of America to have some bipartisan committees get together and come up with things that are good for the rest of the country. That's where we're at, folks. All right, so what's in this thing? So here's an interesting one. I thought this was the most interesting part of it. We are going to get to the prepping part of it. Stay with me, I promise. But I want to go over this funding bill real quick. So we've been talking about how we want to reduce government fraud and abuse, and that we want to reduce government spending, right? This is what the campaign was about. And yet, $6 billion was increased in this bill for defense spending. Increased, you heard that correct. One more time for those in the back. They increased spending for defense in this bill. The GOP did that, okay? For all of their talk about we're going to cut spending and we're going to cut waste and fraud, the military-industrial complex, the Pentagon black budget, has failed 6 or 7 audits in the last couple of years. It is, without a doubt, if you wanted to hide money, and if you wanted to, I'm not saying that's what's happening, I'm saying if you wanted to, this would be the best place to hide money. Because all you have to do is say, in the interest of government security, of national security, we can't disclose to you what this $3 billion project was. And nobody sees it. And nobody knows where that money is. Oh, we've got this pen that costs $12,000. We know a pen doesn't cost $12,000. So that something's being done with that money. Are they developing the next fighter jet? I don't know. They don't show you, they don't tell you. And so we just have to go on the good faith and trust that, of course, the military-industrial complex would be good stewards with your money. And they were increased. They were increased. So remember that the next time that party says to you, like, oh, we're the party of fiscal responsibility and we're trying to cut spending. They did not when it came to defense spending, okay? Let's just hold people accountable. I know there's a lot of people in my audience that lean more to the right than to the left. I get that. But what I'm saying to you is both parties do stuff that you should be questioning, okay? All right, you with me? I'm going to check your comments in just a minute. This is your chance to push back if you disagree. All right, so what else was included in this bill? There is $13 billion in reduction for non-defense cuts. This is a lot of this stuff was stuff that was only supposed to be funded one time anyways, right? So I don't have the full breakdown of that. We'll probably have that in the next few days if you want to go online and dig into that stuff. But from what I understand, a lot of these projects were never supposed to be permanently funded anyways. So people might be crying and saying, oh, well, my grant was lost or whatever. These projects were never supposed to be permanently funded, okay? So most of them anyways. Veterans benefits. It actually fully funds veterans' healthcare and benefits. Awesome. Fully approved. Good job. Military pay. It included the largest pay raise for junior enlisted troops in over 40 years. Now, this is an increase in spending. This is one that I actually can get behind, okay? Because I think we need to do a really good job of taking care of our veterans and our enlisted servicemen. I think that should be that part of military spending. I think is good use of taxpayer money, in my personal opinion. I have no problem with giving our enlisted troops a raise. I have no problem with giving our veterans great health care. They have earned it, okay? IRS funding proposes rescinding some IRS funding. I don't have the details on that, unfortunately. We kind of knew this was coming, right? Like Biden drastically increased IRS funding. Trump came in and said, we're going to cut that, and it looks like that's the bill that the House put together for him. It's in line with what Trump asked for. The voters, the majority of voters voted for Trump, so this is following the mandate of the public, okay, that they wanted, again, less government spending. And I think most people were opposed to all those IRS increases. At least that's the rhetoric that I saw on social media when Biden like drastically increased their funding. Okay. I don't remember if anybody wants to put down in chat how many new agents were added for the IRS. And again, like if we're gonna talk about the IRS, why not go after somebody who's failed their audit 6 or 7 times? Military industrial complex, Pentagon black budget. That's fine. You want to do that? Let's put the funding into the IRS. That's not what's happening, folks. All right. All right. Nutritional assistance. This is important. Pay attention. This one's important. Are you listening? All right. So the GOP constantly is getting accused of not caring about benefits for the poor. They actually increased funding by over 500 million for programs like WIC. Okay. Now you can be against that if you say, hey, we wanted them to decrease funding. That's fine. That's up to you to decide where you lie on that issue. But I want to be clear that a lot of the rhetoric you heard this week was that the GOP doesn't care. The GOP doesn't care. They're cutting all this stuff for the poor. They actually increased funding for WIC by 500 million. Okay. Hey, facts don't care about the feelings, folks. They're just sharing the information. This is the facts. This bill sparked a lot of debate, of course. With Republicans. I'm going to get to chat in just one second. I see some good comments coming through. With Republicans emphasizing fiscal responsibility, sometimes, depends on what the issue was, and Democrats criticizing cuts to non-defense programs. Some were cut. Some of those were supposed to be one-time funded, and they also increased funding for WIC, okay? That if you don't know what WIC is, it is the program for food assistance for women, infants, and children, okay? All right. We're going to get back to the defense spending. We're going to get back to the defense spending in just a second. Let me check chat. All right. Yeah, if you get anything of value out of this, guys, please consider giving me a thumbs up. We are going to get to the prepping portion of this in just a second. I appreciate y'all. Scott Hummer says, agree as long as they don't load the bill with pork waste. So you're talking, so I assume that was when I was talking about bipartisan negotiation. That is a problem when we start sitting down and people are saying, well, I'm not going to pass that unless you put this into it. And that happens a lot of times with when these bills are being developed. And so that's why you might have a bill that is all right. So one that I'm in support of right now is called the Sunshine Protection Act. I'm sidebarring here. Just bear with me. So Sunshine Protection Act, it would, if it's passed, will permanently do away with these clock changes, and we'll just stay with where it is right now, which is daylight savings. So in my personal opinion, I think that would be a great thing for the vast majority of the country because of the impact that these clock changes have on your circadian rhythms and your mental health. I did a whole video about that on my mental health channel. So now that's what the intent of this bill is supposed to be. Somebody's going to come along and they're going to insert something into that bill that has nothing to do with that, and they'll say, if you want my vote, that's the only way you get it, is if you add this funding which builds a bridge in my state because my state needs this bridge repaired or whatever. That's how that works. It's called adding pork to the bill, basically. Let's see. Sumi says the Canadian government had been shut down for months now. The spending still goes on. So thank you for telling me that, Sue. I don't know a lot about how I've tried to read this. The Canadian system is very, very different from the United States in a lot of ways. I don't fully understand it. I'm trying to get a little bit better because I do know I have some Canadian viewers, and I know with everything that's going on in the United States between the United States and Canada right now with trade tariffs and 51st state and all this crazy stuff. I'm trying to get a little bit better at understanding Canadian politics, but thank you for telling me about that. Are they pocketing the money? Well, if you're talking about the black budget for the Pentagon, we would never know. You would have no way of tracing it. Mom and dad, the interest of now. Yeah. So Lazarus Long says, I wish I could have used that excuse when I was a kid. Mom and dad, in the interest of national security, I can't show you my report card. I love that. I'm gonna try this with my spouse, Mrs. Sarge. So when next time she says, "Well, where is that a new knife? Did you get a new knife?" I'm gonna say, in the interest of national security, I can't tell you where this knife came from. I'm just kidding. Mrs. Sarge is awesome. She lets me, if I want to buy a new knife, I can buy a new knife. And if she wants to buy some stuff for her kitchen because she's a chef, fully support that. We have a really good arrangement on how we use money for the household. Yeah, Scott Hummer. Yeah, we love Canada. We love Canada. It's really sad to see what's happening here. I might talk about this in a future video. I'm planning to visit Canada this summer, the Calgary area, and it's making me sad. My family came into this country from Canada on my father's side. We when a couple generations back, from Ireland into Newfoundland into Canada and then into the United States in the New England Boston area. That's how my family entered this country, right? So I hope Canada has been a good friend to the United States. We've long considered each other good friends. I hope that whatever this trade tariff stuff can be worked out. 100% agree with that. Sue Mees, who says enlisted servicemen shouldn't need to frequent food banks. Yep, they should not. They should be paid well. Allison Silverland, how are you doing tonight? It says, my prediction is that Doge ends up providing a stimulus money sort of the universal basic income. I think Trump showed he would do that when COVID first hit. They will eliminate Social Security and do that UBI bill. Don't know. I've spoken about UBI a couple times on my universal basic income. For those who don't know what we're talking about, I've spoken about that a few times in different videos. I do think our future is inevitably going to bring us to UBI because we're going to hit a point with artificial intelligence and automation and robotics that most people are going to be displaced from the workforce. When you have a tipping point of like, say, 40 or 50% of people are unemployed, will have no choice but to do a universal basic income. And I can agree with people who say that's bad for us. Humans should be working. Yeah, I agree. This is where I think it's going. If 40 or 50% of people are unemployed, we're looking at crime going through the roof, substance abuse going through the roof because people try to cope with their depression by self-medicating. Sorry, the words froze on me. Self-medicating, and it would just be a disaster for this country. We can't have unemployment numbers that high without expecting disastrous consequences. So I think once that tipping point hits, they will convert us to a universal basic income. Just my prediction. Is it a bad idea? Well, it goes back to we shouldn't be replacing so many jobs with automation and AI. That's the bad idea. Sorry, I got to scroll back up a little bit. Somebody gave me the number for the IRS agents. So Scott says 87,000 in IRS agents. Is that true? Because that's obscene. That's obscene. I think a lot of countries actually do get an allowance for some. It's been tried in some areas, Alice. People get corrupted here to have children. There is a problem with the way that's set up. where there's like an incentivization to continue to have more children to bring in new income. I don't think it's as rampant as some people would have us believe, because remember, I work in the mental health system, so I kind of have an inside track on how this stuff works. Is there some of that? Yes, for sure. I don't think it's as widespread as like social media and talk show hosts and podcasts and things like that would have people believe. Uh, just scrolling forward, foster care system is, yeah. So there's some problems there. I can't get, we're getting a little bit off track. I can't get into that. There's definitely some problems in that system as well. Years ago, I actually went through the training to become a foster parent. I didn't actually follow through and end up taking any foster kids. That's a story for another day. But let me say it this way: the United States needs good foster parents. So if you like kids and you're willing to work with kids that might be coming in out of a bad situation and having some of them have emotional issues and things like that, and but you're willing to put that work in to give them a safe and stable home, this country needs good foster parents. Vanessa Kitty, how are you doing? Thanks for joining. Appreciate you. All right, scrolling down a little bit. Wayne, how you doing? Becoming Dangerous. Make sure you check out Wayne's channel too. Wayne's doing some really good videos on teaching people about firearms and firearm safety, and dispelling some of the myths about like what you need and things like that. Make sure you check out his channel. And Wayne, if you don't mind, if you've got a second, can you link your channel and also Virginia Bushcrafter's channel? I was shouting him out a little bit earlier. If you've got a second. Gus Wolf, the poll needs all of the above. I agree. All right. Appreciate you too, Alice. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. James, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. I know I'm stumbling with my words today, folks. Janet Neese, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. I hope you're having a good Friday so far. So Wayne says you qualify for food stamps all the way up to E6 as a service member. Yeah. The pay needs to be increased. Absolutely. So this is hopefully a good step in that direction. I love that, Wayne. Yeah, so Wayne talks about hunting and fishing as a way to put more food on the table. That's part of prepping, folks. Awesome job. Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it, Wayne. Thank you. All right, so let's get into this defense spending bill, and then I'm going to shift us to the prepping part of it. Okay. So real quick, defense spending bill. The GOP funding bill allocates $892.5 billion for defense. That's total. Which is total till September. That's just the money being spent till September, folks. So let's call it 900 billion till September, which is an increase of 6 billion compared to the previous fiscal year. Here's some key highlights. Military operations. An additional 8 billion is designated for Central Command and European Command, specifically for US military operations, force protection, and deterrence. Okay, we can speculate what this is about. I would say, with the anticipation that the Ukraine-Russia war is coming to an end, our involvement in that area to protect assets that the United States is going to be tied into, specifically mineral mining and things like that. This probably has some relation to that stuff, is my speculation. Don't take that as fact. Shipbuilding. I thought this was interesting. Funding for the Arleigh Burke class Star Destroyers. It's not Star Wars. Funding for the Arleigh Burke class destroyers has increased to $7.9 billion, potentially adding a third destroyer. However, funding for the Constellation class frigates and medium landing ships has been reduced. Again, I think we can speculate that there is, tension in the Taiwan area is going to continue to heat up. I hope not, but it certainly looks like that. And we are committed to helping Taiwan if they get invaded. So I would say part of that's probably about that. We also know there's a lot of tension building up around Greenland. And I'm not talking about like the United States annexing Greenland. That's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But there's that whole area of the oceans is there's been buildup there by Russia for the last 15 years. And it could be that they are after assets that are going to be available with permafrost melting in the area. It could be that they're after assets in Greenland. Greenland has a lot of those rare earth minerals. I probably need to do a video about what the rare earth minerals are in case people don't understand why there's so much chatter about this. Long story short, the rare earth minerals are needed for the electronic components in just about everything that we create now. Anything that's got any kind of electronic chip in it requires rare earth minerals. There are going to be wars fought in the very near future over access to rare earth minerals. This is the new oil, folks. And this is part of why Trump is trying to negotiate some access for that for the United States with Ukraine. That will help us. If we can get some access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, that will improve our national security. Greenland has a lot of rare earth minerals. I'm guessing that Canada has some rare earth minerals, right? So I don't think we need to annex all these areas. I think we can, negotiate with our friends. And Greenland has been open to the possibility, if I understand correctly, don't quote me on this. I think I read something a few months back that Greenland was open to the possibility of U.S. military bases on their land to help protect them. They don't want to become part of the United States, but they would like to become an important ally and trade partner with the United States. We can make that happen. And again, that's just going back to an article I read at least 2 months ago. So take that with a grain of salt. All right. Pay raises for enlisted military. We talked about that. There is some flexibility in this funding bill for moving money around in that Pentagon budget, which we already hit on. I'm not gonna get redundant on that. All right. Now I'm gonna get back to your chat in just a second. By the way, if you get anything of value out of this, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Check in the description for discount codes for products that I think will help you in your preparedness journey. All right. So if the government failed to pass this funding bill, what would happen? This is and how would you as a prepper deal with that? Okay, so a lot of your non-essential services would halt. Furloughs would exist for a lot of federal employees, not all. Critical services are not cut. But furlough basically means you're getting sent home and you're not getting paid. They do eventually get paid when the funding is restored, but they could go a few days, a few weeks, a few months without getting paid. So if you're a federal worker, really important that you get on some of this stuff that we're going to talk about here in just a second. When you got people that many people, and we're talking about thousands and thousands of people here, folks, whose income is disrupted, it will affect the entire economy. Okay. Now all of a sudden they can't shop at your aunt's restaurant, or they can't eat at your aunt's restaurant. They can't shop at your uncle's hardware store because they're having to be really conservative with their money. This affects the entire economy. Shutting down the government for more than a couple days causes huge problems. Okay. Everybody's got that? All right. So some public services like national parks, things like that can get closed temporarily. Eventually, federal employees, when funding is restored, they do get back pay, which is great. But contractors sometimes don't, right? So what does that mean? So, for example, Mrs. Sarge is a chef. Now, we don't have any current federal contracts. If we did, I would have to disclose that to you. But let's pretend that she did. Let's say that she had some catering contract where she delivered 5,000 cookies per month to some federal building. Okay, let's say she had some kind of catering contract like that. When this gets shut down, when the federal government gets shut down, a contractor like that does not get paid and they don't get back pay. So there's talking about thousands of people that do that kind of stuff would be really screwed. Really screwed if this thing went on for a long time. Okay. So what do we do? Well, number one thing is if you can get ahead of this thing, as all preppers, we should be having some emergency money put aside. If you've been following the last 3 live streams, this is kind of a spiritual successor to that. And we've been talking about some of these things like prolonged recession and things like that. And my recommendation, different people are going to give you different numbers. My recommendation continues to be that you should have 6 months worth of the bare essentials, enough money to cover your bare essentials for 6 months. Okay, so what am I talking about? I'm talking about your mortgage or rent. I'm talking about your medicine, if you have life-saving medicine. I'm talking about your food budget, and I'm talking about electricity. Okay, just about everything else is a non-essential. Now, if you could go one step beyond that, I would maybe think about if you've got a car payment or something like that. Of course, your car insurance, right? Like you got to think about some of those things. But those are your bare essentials. So what gets cut? Everything else. Okay. Johnny's Little League fees. Sorry, Johnny, we're not going to get to play Little League this year. Your Netflix account, your Amazon Prime, your weekly night out for pizza, gone. Your daily coffee from Starbucks, gone, right? So all those things, you got to start cutting all of your non-essentials. And that means less money going into the economy. So again, this becomes like a snowball effect for everybody else. But when you get into survival mode like this, you have to think about, from psychology, for those of you guys who took Psychology 101, Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Food, shelter, life-saving medicines would be in there. Electricity isn't even, like, you could say that electricity isn't an essential if you know how to survive without electricity. Humans did for long periods of time, right? So I've worked with people who didn't have electricity. I've worked with people who didn't even have water at their residence. I've worked with homeless people. You can live without electricity, but I would say if you can work that into your budget for 6 months worth of covering your electricity bills, I would include that, and water as well, of course. Okay. Now, when I've worked with people who couldn't afford electricity and water, guess what? They got really resourceful and they figured out ways to get fresh water. You can do it. In a survival situation, you will figure it out. Okay. Start thinking about, I'm thinking about like the times in my life when I was hit with some really hard times. I've talked about this in some other videos. If you can't afford your Netflix and your Amazon Prime and your karate fees and all these other entertainment things, you start getting creative. You use your public parks that are already available. You go to the library, and that's your entertainment, right? You do more walks. You quit that gym membership, and you use the stuff around your house to exercise, right? So you start looking at, how do I do these things without spending money? Okay, so you access other resources. Think about negotiating payments, right? So if you have loans, like your car loan and things like that, contact them. Contact your landlord and say, this is the situation. I'm a federal worker, not getting paid right now. I will eventually get back paid. You will get paid. Can you work with me? Some creditors will, some creditors won't. If you don't think you're going to be able to make a payment, it's always a good idea to open that communication and be transparent. Because if it gets to a point of repossession or eviction or whatever, having some good faith communication with your creditors will be somewhat beneficial in a lot of cases. I can't promise you it always is going to be beneficial, but in some cases it will. Temporary work. If you're a federal worker that's laid off, I don't think that, unless you're in part of a union that says you can't, I don't think there's anything that says you can't take temporary work, like DoorDash, Uber Eats, Uber, Lyft, right? Gig economy. I do all kinds of gig economy work for extra income. There is ways to keep bringing some money in. Is it going to be as big as your paycheck was? Probably not, but at least it keeps a little bit more money flowing in. You don't have to dip into your savings as much, okay? Look into other supports like churches. We talked about this in one of the last couple streams too, right? So if you're not involved with a church and you're not a member of that church, it doesn't mean they're not going to help you, but you probably should offer to do a little volunteer work if you're taking something in terms of like they're going to help you pay an electric bill or something like that. Then you should at least volunteer, like, hey, can I help clean up after services or do something else to work this off, right? Shows good faith effort on your part instead of just saying, give me free stuff, right? So if you're able to do that, you're probably going to be a little bit more likely to get, if you needed help again down the road, to not be turned away, because they'll remember, like, hey, this person wasn't just looking for free crap. They actually, were trying to be, to give something back to us too. Okay. Make sense? All right. Watch that budget closely when you're out of work, right? If you're, I've talked recently about when I was out of work for 6 months, you got to be real tight. Don't spend a single cent that you don't have to. And I know it stinks. That's why I'm saying you also have to find all those like free community resources for your entertainment. Stock your pantry ahead of time, right? I've had many, many people on this channel talking about how they are, when they were going through a period of unemployment or homelessness, that it was their resources that they had as a prepper that got them through, right? I know that one of the members of our community, I'm not going to name that person, sold her silver coin collection because she was homeless, and that got her food and medicine for a couple months. If you've got a well-stocked food pantry of canned goods, we're going to save quite a bit. Maybe you won't even have to buy groceries for a little while, right? That could be a huge thing, especially how expensive groceries are right now. All right, and then you guys know we've talked in the past about diversifying your income, right? That getting ahead of this now, whether there's a federal shutdown or not, diversifying your income, create passive income stocks if you can afford to do that, new revenue streams, right? Like maybe you can open up on there's a thing people are doing on Amazon now where they go on and they like do kind of like what I'm doing here. They talk about products though, and like this is why I like this product, and they get commissions off of that. I don't remember Amazon something program, Amazon influencer program, I think is what it's called. There, Uber, Lyft, there's all kinds of offer to fix something for your neighbor if you're handy, right? If you're good at fixing cars, offer to do if there's a neighbor that's been thinking about car repairs, or even washing cars, right? Like there's all kinds of things you can do to kind of keep a little bit of money coming in, and that will help to stop the bleed of your prepped resources, including your emergency savings. Okay. All right. Let's go to chat one more time, and then I'm going to wind you down. 62% of you have decided that Congress is a bunch of crooks. Look it up, the poll. All right, scrolling down. If I miss your thing, I'm so sorry. I'm really trying to catch everybody. Robbie Gans, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, Robbie. So I've been trying to, when I don't have a guest, I go live on Instagram too. The only problem is I can't follow both chats. So I encourage people when they're on Instagram, if you're watching, to go over to YouTube, where if you want to get involved with the chat. And we usually have good stuff going on over there. James, I'm not sure. NDAA of 2025. I think I missed the context of that. Wayne, thank you for posting those links. Appreciate you. Oh, thanks, Robbie. I appreciate that. Hey, Steve, it's good to see you. Appreciate you letting me know you're around. Yeah, Wayne, I trust you. So Wayne was in the Navy. He said all the new ships in the last 25 years suck. If he says that, I believe him. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that in the last couple live streams here, how those military contracts are awarded, right? For building new ships, building new planes, building new missiles. Somebody needs to be looking into that stuff, folks. Pajeki Survivalist, how are you doing? Appreciate you. Thanks for joining. Actually, I think Greenland will voluntarily join the winning team. I don't know. I don't see that happening, but I do see us possibly building some military bases over there and forging a really strong relationship with Greenland, and I think that's going to be mutually beneficial. It could happen, James. I mean, it could happen. I'm just speculating like everybody else. China has the greatest, yes, Scott Hummer. China has the greatest abundance of these rare earth minerals. They have, when it comes to that, they're sitting on a very big strategic advantage going into the next 50 years for humans. They are sitting on the biggest abundance of that for sure. Well, and Wayne, if it happens that Greenland somehow becomes part of the United States, who knows? Colony, if it, I don't think it will. Personally, I don't think it's going to happen, but could be colony, could be something like one of the territories where they don't have full state rights. I mean, who knows what happens? Asteroid mining will happen at some point in humanity's future if we live long enough, if we don't destroy each other long enough, James. Because there is in the solar system, there is an abundance of resources. I think I read somewhere that there's like an asteroid in the asteroid belt that's like loaded with gold. But the cost to go and get that and mine it and bring it back, we don't even know if humans would. Yeah, I suppose they could possibly come up with something with robots to do that. We don't know how humans would survive in that situation for that prolonged period of time. We need to land humans on Mars first and see how that goes and see how we survive that situation. But yes, there's a ton of minerals out there in our solar system that eventually, if humans live long enough, we will get those. I'm not sure what's going on with it, Kentucky. Department of Redundancy Department. Thanks, Robbie. Yeah, I welcome people to disagree with me. I mean, a lot of stuff when I'm talking about politics, it's just my opinion. I don't expect people to think like me or vote like me, or I'm just giving you my thoughts. And I when you guys give me comments, whether it be in chat or in comments, I do read them. I do take them into consideration. I have changed my mind on some things that I thought that about the way that I was thinking about something. Yes, that's true, Robbie. They're going to oppose him. There are people who are going to oppose Trump no matter what he does. If he cured cancer, they're going to still say he was evil. If he saved a bunch of puppies from drowning, they would still say he was evil. So I don't, when people are that extreme in their thoughts, I don't really regard them too much. Like, okay, so there's nothing that he could do that's ever going to be, no matter how beneficial it is for humanity, you're never going to acknowledge that, are you? So like you have to like weed out the most extremes on both sides, right? Just like there are some people who say like the Democrats couldn't possibly do anything good. Well, I don't believe that. And I certainly have known a few good Democrats and I've voted for some Democrats, and sometimes they do come up with good things. I said I'll use this example last week. I know a lot of people in my community don't like AOC. I personally don't like AOC, and I disagree with her 99% of the time. But one thing I will say in her favor is she's one of the few people in Congress that's calling out you can't call it insider trading, that's calling out how legislators have different rules for stock trading. Let's say it that way. She's one of the few people that's calling that out. Laura, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. How are you doing tonight? Prepper for the Ages. Hope you're having a good Friday. Thank you. Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. I hope you're having a great Friday. Also, make sure you're checking out Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival. Great friend to this channel and putting out great content always. And Mike and the Livingston Man have been on our live stream a couple times. Make sure you're checking out their live stream. It's really fun. And he's got the 4 Horsemen live stream, which is really good too. Coffee first. I don't know if I caught you before. Thank you so much. Appreciate you for joining us. Hey, Steve, you got to give up the Starbucks. I'm sorry, man. I know you're a big fan of Starbucks coffee. It's right up your alley, right? Thanks. Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival says if you're on your iPhone or an Android to give a thumbs up, you double tap. Actually, I didn't know that myself. Yeah, I've got plenty of friends that are doing the DoorDash gig, and some of them said that like they're making enough money with that they end up quitting their primary job. Same. When I was laid off of work, I talked about this on one of the recent streams. Had to basically cut everything. I was pretty poor for a while. Not the only time I had that in my life. When I went through my divorce, I was really poor for a while, and I was literally like unplugging appliances in my house to not get any trickle charge of electricity, because you actually get a very small charge for when things are plugged in. just like trickle electricity. You know, so I'm doing okay now. I'm in a much better situation than I was 20 years ago. But there's times where, you know, I had to pinch two pennies together, and I don't regret those times in my life, because it actually helps me to have empathy for people who are struggling too. And I had to get creative. I was recycling aluminum and selling books. Here's a gig for you. I'll give up one of my gigs that I used to do. So I used to go around and finding, like at flea markets or whatever, books by authors that everybody knows, like Danielle Steele, Stephen King, you know, very famous authors. You know, those somebody else is going to want to read that. If the book was in good condition, I'd buy it a lot of times for like 50 cents, and then I turned around and would sell it on eBay for $3. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you do that, you know, in volume, it definitely helped cover some bills for me during those tougher times in my life. So there you go. I shared one of my little life hacks for you, side hustles, whatever you want to call it. TikTok. Oh, I hate those TikTok commercials that are going on right now. TikTok. So I can't go down this rabbit hole right now. It'll take me in another hour. Somebody needs to do a live stream about what's going on with TikTok right now. Chat very difficult for me tonight. I'm sorry, man. Prepared Irishman, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. XNYC OG Prepper, how you doing, my friend? It's always good to see you. I hope you're having a great Friday. Burpee Yoga Uncle, how are you doing? Aloha. If I miss somebody, I don't mean to. I'm not intentionally trying to pass by somebody. It was 20. Oh, Wayne, thank you for sharing that. It was 20 degrees in my house when I got divorced. I put my bed in the smallest room and burned Dollar Tree candles around the bed at nighttime. Yeah, brother, I hear you. All right, Wayne. I mean, Steve, have a good night. Appreciate you. All right, thank you guys. Great comments, and thank you Instagram for joining. Appreciate y'all. Again, if you're watching this on Instagram, just know that like when I'm streaming on both, I can't follow the both chat. So if you want to get involved with chat, you know, when I'm going live, head over to YouTube, because if I'm on live on Instagram, I'm almost always live on YouTube too. And I'd love to have you join the chat. I just can't. I'm a one-person show here. I can't keep both going in my head. So I run it so people can watch, but would love to have you over there. James Broadwater, I don't feel sorry for corrupt federal employees. James, not everybody is. There's good federal employees. In fact, I have friends who are VA therapists. They do a heck of a job trying to take care of our veterans. These are people that some of them are people I trained. So I know they're doing a damn good job. These are people that I trained, and they're in danger because of all these cuts. Okay. So is there waste and fraud with federal spending? Yes. I've worked in those systems. I can confirm there is things that can be cut, but there's also a lot of good people doing a lot of good services for people, and they get caught up in this whirlwind as well. So I don't think it's, I have to push back on that. I don't think it's fair to say that they're all crappy. Just like it's not fair for me to say, you can't see the poll tonight. It's not fair for me to say that all politicians are crooks, right? I may say that, but the reality is I have known a couple good ones. I've worked for a few good ones. I've campaigned for a few good ones, right? But there's a lot of corruption in Congress. There's a lot. All right, folks, let me go ahead and wind this one down. Yeah, Burpee Yoga Uncle, I agree. It's I think things are going to get worse before they get better. I got a message for you, though. We're going to end with a little bit of positivity. Just got to find where I put that. There it is. All right, so I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to call it a night, folks. And I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you both. I appreciate Instagram and YouTube. Appreciate you giving me a little bit of your time tonight, sharing a little bit of your weekend with me. But now it's time for you to go out, have a great weekend, and have enjoy your time with your family. If it's nice outside where you're going to be, get outside, enjoy that sunshine. My message for tonight is prepping, and I wrote this before we went live. Prepping is a long road, not a short walk. Tough roads will test us, but they will not break us. Preparation is the bridge on that road, the bridge between fear and resilience. Stock your mind with knowledge, your pantry with food, your heart with hope, and your hands with skills. Every step we take on that road today improves our position for tomorrow. We will walk this journey together, you and I, one step at a time. Folks, I hope you have a great night. Keep planting your seeds, keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.